Glenn's eyes fluttered open. He wasn't in his bed. He wasn't even in his apartment. He was on a simple cot in a gigantic room. It looked like a massive warehouse, with walls so high they disappeared into the shadows above. Around him, hundreds of other cots were lined up in perfect rows, and people were slowly waking up, just as confused as he was. There were 455 other people here, all looking around with a mix of curiosity and fear. Everyone was wearing their own clothes, a random assortment of styles that made the whole scene feel even more chaotic and strange. It was a sea of strangers, all brought together for a reason none of them yet understood. Suddenly, a group of people in black jumpsuits and strange masks walked into the room. Their masks were completely black, except for a white shape on the front. Some had circles, some had triangles, and others had squares. They didn't speak, they just stood there holding weapons like silent guards in a bizarre prison. Their presence immediately shifted the atmosphere from confusion to tension. Glenn felt a knot tighten in his stomach. Who were these people? Where were they? The masked figures moved with a purpose that was both calm and terrifying, directing everyone to stand and form lines without uttering a single word.
Welcome, everyone. I bet you're all wondering where you are. Well, I'm here to tell you, you have been selected to participate in the first ever American Squid Game.
The announcement hung in the air, met with stunned silence and nervous murmurs. A game? What kind of game was this? The squirrel-masked host had a cheerful energy that felt completely out of place with the armed guards standing everywhere.
There are 456 players in total. You will play 6 different games over the next few days. These are all simple games. In fact, you probably played them as kids. The winner of all 6 games will walk away with a grand prize of $30 million. But that's not all. For every single player who is eliminated, we will add an extra $100 to that piggy bank.
A wave of excitement rippled through the crowd. People started whispering, their eyes wide with disbelief. One woman near Glenn muttered, "I could pay off my mortgage, my student loans, everything." The masked guards led the players out of the massive dormitory and into an even bigger outdoor arena. The walls were painted to look like a bright sunny field under a blue sky, but Glenn knew it was all fake. At the far end of the field stood a giant, creepy-looking animatronic doll of a little girl.
Your first game is very simple. It's green light, red light. When the doll sings and faces away, you run towards the finish line. When she stops singing and turns around, you must freeze completely. If she detects any movement, you will be eliminated.
The word eliminated sounded so final, so ominous. The game began. A cheerful, unsettling song started to play, and the giant doll turned its back.
Green light!
A few brave players started to run. Others, like Glenn, hesitated for a second before jogging forward, trying to cover as much ground as possible. The field was huge, and the finish line seemed impossibly far away. The tension was insane. Everyone was focused, their bodies coiled like springs, ready to stop at a moment's notice. The air was thick with the sound of hundreds of pairs of feet pounding against the artificial turf. A frantic rhythm of hope and desperation.
Red light.
The doll's head snapped around, its large, unblinking eyes scanning the field. Everyone froze in place, some in awkward, off-balance positions. A man just a few feet away from Glenn wobbled, trying to regain his balance. It was a tiny movement, barely noticeable. But the doll saw it. A loud crack echoed through the arena. A gunshot. The man crumpled to the ground, a dark stain spreading on his shirt. A woman screamed. Then another gunshot rang out, and another player fell. The reality of elimination hit everyone like a physical blow. This wasn't a game. This was life or death. Panic erupted. People who had been frozen in fear now screamed and tried to run back toward the entrance, but more gunshots stopped them in their tracks. The masked guards stood impassively, their weapons raised. The message was clear. There was no escape. You either played the game, or you died. After the initial chaos, a horrifying silence fell over the field. About 53 people were lying motionless on the ground. Glenn's heart was pounding in his chest, his legs trembling. He didn't dare move a muscle as he waited for the doll to turn around again, his mind screaming at him to survive. The game continued.
Green light!
The eerie song started again, and the doll turned its back. This time the players moved with a desperate, calculated caution. No one was sprinting anymore. They moved carefully, making sure they could stop instantly. The field was now littered with the bodies of the fallen grim obstacles to navigate around. Glenn kept his eyes locked on the doll, his ears tuned to the rhythm of the song. He moved in short, controlled bursts, his entire body screaming with tension. Every single step felt like a gamble, a bet that he could freeze faster than the doll could turn. This was the most terrifying thing he had ever experienced. When the game finally ended and the remaining players stumbled across the finish line, they were trembling and covered in sweat. They had survived, but the psychological toll was immense. They looked back at the field, at the bodies being removed by the masked workers in a chillingly efficient manner. The bright, cheerful playground setting now seemed like a grotesque mockery of their situation. The survivors were herded back into the main dormitory, their initial excitement replaced with a heavy, suffocating dread. The promise of $30 million now seemed like a distant, almost impossible dream, tainted by the blood they had just witnessed. As they entered the dormitory, their eyes were drawn upward, sounds of whirring mechanics and clinking filled the air. High above, bundles of cash were being dropped into the giant piggy bank. A digital counter on the side of the pig ticked upward. It started at $30 million and began to climb. For every one of the 53 players eliminated, $100 was added. The total prize money was now $30,005,300. Watching the money fall was a surreal experience. It was a direct, tangible reward for the deaths they had just witnessed. It was blood money, and it was mesmerizing. The players stood in silence, watching the prize pool grow. The sight of the money had a powerful effect. It was a stark reminder of what was at stake. For many, this was more money than they could ever dream of earning in a lifetime. The fear was real, but so was the temptation. A man near Glenn, his face pale with shock, whispered, 53 people, for just over $5,000. Is that what a life is worth? But for others, the calculation was different. The bigger the prize, the more it seemed worth the risk. The piggy bank became a symbol of both death and opportunity.
Congratulations to our survivors. You have successfully completed the first game. However, we believe in fairness. Our rules state that if a majority of players agree to stop the games, we will end them right now. You will all be sent home, but you will leave with nothing. The choice is yours. We will now vote.
A heavy debate broke out among the players. "We have to stop," a woman cried out, tears streaming down her face. "People died. This is insane." Many agreed with her, their voices filled with fear and moral outrage. They wanted to go home, to forget this nightmare ever happened. They argued that no amount of money was worth their lives or the lives of others. They pleaded with their fellow players to think about their families, to remember what was truly important. For a moment it seemed like the vote to stop would be unanimous. The horror was still too fresh, too raw. But then another voice cut through the noise. "And go home to what?" a man shouted, his voice filled with desperation. "To my debt? To the eviction notice on my door? I came here because I had nothing left to lose. That money is my only chance." His words resonated with a large portion of the group. One by one, others spoke up, sharing stories of crippling medical bills, overwhelming student loans, and the constant struggle to provide for their families. They argued that while the game was terrifying, the life they would return to was its own kind of prison. The money offered a way out, a real chance at freedom. The voting began. Each player walked up to the front and pressed one of the two buttons, their choice displayed anonymously on a large screen. The numbers for stop and continue climbed steadily, staying neck and neck for what felt like an eternity. Glenn stood frozen, his mind racing. Go home to his dead-end job and mounting bills, or stay and risk death for a chance at a new life. In the end, the choice was made. The final tally appeared. 201 votes to stop, 202 votes to continue. By a single vote, the games would go on. A grim silence fell over the room as the host clapped his hands together.
Excellent. The majority has spoken. Prepare yourselves for the next game.